I love the Nico Collins deal when it happened, but man, this thing keeps getting better and better and better and better for the Houston Texans. How big of a steal is the Nico Collins deal today? And how much bigger of a steal is it going to continue to get? If you're unaware, Nico Collins signed a contract extension this offseason. It amounts to about 3 years, $75 million as the extension number. Now, it comes in a little bit below that because it's worth up to $75 million, $52 million guaranteed headed Nico Collins' way. And that's a pretty good deal for Nico Collins coming off of one super successful year in the National Football League. That's a great deal for him. He is going to be in the top 10 of average annual salary for wide receivers for now, because he's not going to be in the top 10 for much longer, meaning that it's a really, really good deal for the Houston Texans. I'll explain later why it's still a good deal for Nico Collins, but let's pull up our friends over at Spot Rack and take a look at these top 10 wide receivers. And Justin Jefferson's mega deal that checks in there at the top, the 4-year extension, $140 million, giving him an average annual value of $35 million. We knew Justin Jefferson was going to check in ahead of Nico Collins with the track record that he's put together in the NFL. And Collins already was behind a number of other wide receivers, A.J. Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Tyreek Hill, and so on. But he's not even on the first scroll. I got to scroll again to find Nico Collins. There he is at 9. And at checking in under $25 million per year, and it checks in at below $20 million a year when you factor in what Nico Collins has set to be paid this upcoming season. And if he does revert closer to the previous 2 years before his breakout year for the Texans can get out of this deal without too much harm after a couple of seasons. It's all kind of working more and more and more in favor for the Texans. And that's where Nico is right now. He's 9th in average annual value. Well, there's at least 3 wide receiver deals on the horizon that should check in ahead of Nico Collins as well. Jamar Chase is going to get paid. It's not going to be Justin Jefferson money, but it's going to be pretty darn big. And that's going to be more than Nico Collins' deal. And then CeeDee Lamb is going to get paid, and he might get close to Justin Jefferson's money, maybe not quite there, but CeeDee Lamb's going to get paid. And then Brandon Ayuk, who was right ahead of Nico Collins in a couple of statistical categories last season, he's going to get paid as well. All 3 of those guys are going to check in ahead of Nico, and Ayuk might check in right at Nico Collins, but because he's coming in after Nico and he's got a little bit more of a track record of success, he should check in ahead of Nico Collins. So he's 9th now. CeeDee Lamb pushes him to 10th. Ayuk pushes him to 11th. And then Jamar Chase pushes him to 12th. And you're thinking to yourself, 12th in average annual value for a one-level wide receiver, a guy that's better than a lot of other teams' number 1 wide receiver. That's pretty darn good. Well, let me add to the conversation. And look, if you've followed my work for any long amount of time, you know that I didn't feel like Nico Collins was a true undisputed number 1 wide receiver heading into last season. In fact, I was pretty low on the potential for Nico Collins, but this offense, C.J. Stroud and Nico's hard work put him in a position to succeed in an incredible way last year. He's one of the 10 best wide receivers in all of football last year. It's a shame that people haven't really caught up to that. I'm caught up to it. Texans fans are caught up to it, but it seems like the fantasy football community hasn't quite caught up to that, which I feel like this is a really fun piece of info for Nico Collins because it uses stats from his 2023 season and talks about the potential in 2024. If you're unfamiliar with Underdog Fantasy, well, let me tell you about that here in just a second. Underdog Fantasy, I think it's the best way to play fantasy. And Hayden Winks is one of their fantastic writers, and he did a big breakdown on the best wide receivers against man coverage. Now, this is linked in the description down below. I encourage you to read the whole thing. There's some really good fantasy advice and conversation in there, but this is really about this guy right here on the screen, Nico Collins. Let's get down to this little chart here. Now, this is the 2024 average draft position of these wide receivers. So you see CeeDee Lamb and Tyreek Hill and Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and a bunch of other names. And you scroll again, and there's still no Nico Collins. And you scroll again, and there's still no Nico Collins. And then, there's Nico Collins sitting there at 15. Now, again, this is where he's going in Underdog Fantasy best ball drafts. But go back and let's sort by composite rank here. Nico Collins checks in at number 2, and he checks in at number 2 in yards per route run against man coverage. Now, why are all these advanced stats and nerdy things that Hayden Winks is talking about super important? Well, tell me how you're going to zone coverage Tank Dell and Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs and Dalton Schultz and Joe Mixon catching the ball out of the backfield. And then tell me how you're going to man up Nico Collins when he was one of the best players in all of football against man coverage last year. Tell me how you're going to man up on him, send a little help that way, and still be able to account for Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs and Dalton Schultz and Joe Mixon out of the backfield. And then the yards per route run is an efficiency thing. He's one of the best in football against man coverage in an efficiency stat. Okay, and it leans itself, as Hayden talks about in this article, to explosive wide receivers with good quarterback play. Well, Nico Collins showcased last year, he's explosive, and he's got good quarterback play. And now he's got a teammate that can take just a tiny bit more pressure off of him. And you see, looking at those stats, including the 2023 stats, and throwing those all together with what Nico Collins is, he ranks highly amongst wide receivers, even though in this exercise that Hayden put together, the fantasy community still sees him lower. So again, he's a super productive receiver. If he keeps it up, the efficiency is something to pay attention to because the overall output may be a little bit lower because there's more mouths to feed on the offense. Joe Mixon said last week, everybody's going to eat. I believe him, but there's only one football. So overall, the numbers might go down, but the explosiveness and the efficiency with which Nico Collins operates could be going up. And especially when I see those numbers, and again, check the article out in the description down below, especially when I see those numbers, it's pretty exciting to start thinking about what Nico Collins is going to bring to the table from a production standpoint. Even if the overall numbers go down a little bit, the efficiency goes up a little bit because there's a little bit less that the defense can pay attention to for him. And think about this. He spent portions of last year as the only option at the wide receiver spot, or the clear-cut top option at the wide receiver spot. An efficient wide receiver where he gets to share some of that responsibility and that load with Diggs, with Tank Dell over the course of 17 games. It starts to get really exciting as to what Nico Collins can bring to the table. I am really excited to see what he has this season. So the flip side of, hey, it's a great deal for the Houston Texans. Why did Nico Collins sign that contract? Well, Nico Collins had made less than a few $1,000,000 in the NFL to that point. The signing bonus was fantastic, and he only had 1 year of extreme production under his belt. And if he doesn't sign the contract, he has another great year. Sure, more money is on the horizon, but also the franchise tag could be on the horizon, and that's not a tremendous amount more money than what he's going to end up making this year. And then there's some uncertainty of, hey, you did it twice. We're going to tag you. Hope you do it a third time. And then, oh, well, we got Tank Dell. Well, maybe the Texans have drafted somebody, gotten lucky with a pick here or there, and all of a sudden the need for Nico Collins is lower than it is right now. So it's a good deal for Nico Collins. One, he gets a tremendous amount of money up front with the signing bonus. He gets a good average annual value for his level of production in the NFL right now. And you never go to the ice cream shop and get one scoop, right? You get 2 scoops at a big contract. If you're Nico Collins, he's going to be less than 30 years old, maybe entering his second prime as a wide receiver when he gets to go back to the negotiating table. 2 scoops at the wide receiver money if you're Nico Collins. It worked out great for him. It's working out great for the Texans. And each and every day that these big wide receiver deals get signed, like Justin Jefferson and his gazillion-dollar deal that got signed, each and every day that more deals pop up, the deal gets better and better for the Houston Texans. And oh, by the way, if Nico Collins produces throughout this deal, the deal gets better for him too when he goes back for that second scoop at the negotiating table. I mentioned Underdog Fantasy, and if you're unaware, it's still fantasy season. You're like, Cody, football hadn't even started yet, but you can already start drafting your season-long best ball drafts. I mean, look at all these different options that you can get into at Underdog Fantasy. Best Ball Mania is going to give you $1.5 million when you win the big one. Okay. I tried to win the big one for us in a Best Ball Mania draft that I did live here on the channel a few weeks ago. And if I win the big one, we're going to have a big party on here. But Underdog Fantasy, the best way to play fantasy. The drafts here, you can get in with just a 2-person draft, kind of winner take all almost thing with there. You can get in for as little as $3, $5 on these drafts, Best Ball Mania as well. And they're best ball drafts. If you don't know what that is, well, you just draft and forget it. You don't have to make roster moves. You don't have to make changes. It stinks when your guys get injured, but your best players are started automatically every week, all season long. And when you use the link in the description down below and use my code Stoots, STOOTS, you're going to get a 50% match bonus up to $250. Plus, you're going to get special Pick'em options. I didn't even tell you guys about the Pick'em format. Pick'em's great. You're taking 2 to 5 players, making a guess on the excellence of their play that night, higher or lower, and it's pretty simple what you do. Put a couple of higher or lowers together, make your guess, enter in. You could 20 times your money in just one night. You'll get special Pick'em options throughout the the NFL season if you use my code Stoots and the link in the description down below. I know you're thinking it's kind of early for fantasy. Get in, get some of those cheap drafts in, figure out how it's all working. And then as you get news in training camp, as you get closer to the season, bam, get a bunch of drafts under your belt and win you a bunch of money over at Underdog Fantasy, the best way to fantasy. Appreciate you watching. Hit that comment section to let me know what's the best deal you've ever got. Huh? Let me know. What's the best deal you ever got? I know there's a good deal over at Houston football, $7 a month, everything you need to know about the Houston Texans. But what's the best deal you've ever got? Let me know in the comment section down below. Could be a good trade you made in fantasy football. Could be a good sale that you caught. Maybe it's your favorite jacket that you bought for $5 many years ago, and that's just been a great deal. Let me know in the comment section down below. Appreciate you watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. Plenty more to come your way. Mandatory minicamp this week. Don't miss it. You won't miss it if you subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. Can't wait till we talk Texans again soon.